Real quick talk about smoothing out the bumps, and then I'll get you guys into a break. Smoothing out the bumps is something that I like to do. Once you've constructed your case structure and your point structure, it's going to be pretty rough. It's going to be pretty jagged. So here are a few tips on how you can smooth that out and make it a little more effective. Starting off, first of all, stay organized. Remember, one of your goals was to be organized, so make sure that you stay organized. Commit to being organized throughout your entire construction process. A lot of problems can be avoided if you ensure that your organization is strong. If your organization is together, if you have intentionally organized things in your speech, you're going to get out of a lot of problems that you might face. A lot of those rough edges are already going to be smoothed out when you get to the end of your speech because your case is going to be a cohesive body of thought. Always be intentional with how you're organizing things, what order you're putting points in, etc. When you get to the end of constructing your case or constructing your speech, you should think, is there a reason for this? Was this intentional? Did I intentionally or purposefully do this thing? And if I did not, I'm going to go back and change how I did it. Now you should pace out your prep time so you have time to do this, but I would definitely recommend making sure that everything's intentional. Finally, if you're organized, you're clear, and remember, if you're clear, it leads to understanding. So the more organized you are, the more effective you're going to be in communicating. Let's start off with, don't be formulaic. Let's second off with don't be formulaic. Don't be formulaic in the way that you say things. Don't be formulaic in the way that you address things as you're starting to think through how you're actually going to deliver your speech. Don't turn extemp into a debate speech. Remember, I was talking about how you have points and subpoints. You don't want to make it like a point-to-subpoint speech. You want to just have that be an informal organization. That's kind of a skeletal structure in your mind that makes sure you stay organized, not necessarily something you're putting into your speech. Be careful not to turn your roadmap or subpoints into signposts. Be careful that when you have your roadmap, you don't say, look, my first point's this, my second point's this, my third point's this. Make sure that it's more informal than that and more effective. Finally, if you turn formulaic, you're going to lose audience interest. If you turn into somebody who says, my first point's this, my second point's this, my third point's this, for a lot of judges, that's going to be an automatic turn-off for their interest in your mind. They're going to get back to the judges' room to try to fill out their ballots, and they're going to have no idea what your speech is about because they weren't really paying attention, because they had to hear 7 other extemp speeches that were also dealing with really complex and really difficult to understand things, and they just did not have the mental energy to process your speech. So you'll probably get 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. It's generally not good if you are formulaic, because that's a major turn-off in a judge's mind. Leave room to fill in. Make sure as you're constructing your speech, you leave plenty of room in your case structure to actually be able to explain points as you go, to be able to analyze things as you go. When you're planning your speech, leave room for analysis. Now, it might seem that when you have an index card that just has a little bit of information on it, so it would seem that you might not be able to fill 7 minutes with probably the 150 words that you have on your index card. A lot of people try to compensate for that by having way more cards, way more articles than they need to. But make sure you leave room to fill in and explain. Don't leave a point until you feel like you've explained it well. Don't leave something until you feel like you've gotten a good conclusion. Don't jam-pack your speech with 4 or 5 points. Make sure you have time to explain. That's why 3 points is really good, because 3 points is effective, but 3 points is also few enough that you should have time to explain them, have room to fill in, and analyze a lot of those points as well. If you explain well, you're going to be more effective. Again, this is all about effectivity. If you're more effective, that's going to be better for your rankings. It's going to be better for the impact you have on judges, and you're going to be more effective if you explain things better. 4th, make sure that you go through in your speech and explain why this matters to a judge. The best extemp speeches, the only good extemp speeches, are speeches that emphasize the impact that it has on a judge's life. Make sure to constantly ask yourself why this question matters to a judge. Why should the judge care about Zimbabwe? Why on earth would anyone in the United States care about Zimbabwe? Think through that as you're addressing that in your mind. Think through ways that you can introduce it in a way like, look, this could also apply to the United States. This could also be something that was happening in the United States. So think about it that way. Or there's human rights abuses. Think if you were one of those people. Think if you were one of those families. There are real problems in the world outside our borders. We have to address them. Just make sure that a judge understands why this matters. throughout your speech includes sections where you can impact it to the judges, where you can impact your argumentation and say, look, this is why you should care. This is why this should matter to you. This is why you need to listen to the rest of my speech, because this matters. This has an impact on you and on your life. The most compelling Extemp speeches show that global affairs impacts people. That global affairs as a whole, that global affairs, things that are happening in the world do in fact impact people, do in fact affect each and every one of us. So that's all I had for speech instruction.